people have mentioned how they practice like in the mirror, things like that. I will suggest to you the best thing to practice is with a young child, because they will always ask why and how. So I'm practicing with them, and he's asking why, and why is that, Dad? Why is that? It's a perfect question, perfect logical question. Why did I choose this? There's 25 students in that picture. If they 8th grade students that graduated. If they all went to John Marshall, which is my feeder school, 14 of them would drop. If they go to a top-rated Cleveland high school, 98% of them will graduate high school. Those are just the statistics in the area that I'm in. So to me, it's very personal when it comes to this. This is something that we started at East when I was principal there. Working with Jameson, we worked a lot on that, and this is something that we want to bring to my class. It's just where it's at. So all K through 8 connects to this. I had an interesting conversation yesterday with a first grade teacher that was at my school, and I did share with her this mission statement. First question, how does this apply to me? It applies to all of us. These kids, the foundation, if it's not there, they're going to be behind. So I really wanted to stress the connection between K through 8 when I mentioned high schools. And that's going to be a challenge with me when it comes to the staff, but if they see that it's all connected in one way or another, that every year builds upon each other, every learning goal that's accomplished keeps going up, that our students will be able to accomplish this mission statement. At Northwest, we believe in love, collaboration, resilience, respect, and mastery. Those are the 5 things that we're going to stand by. So I want to walk you through this. Love, how it's going to look like my first 30 days at school. The goal is to have daily praise announcements. It could be in the beginning of school, well, it will be in the beginning of school, and it will be at the end of school. And then we'll also have, every teacher will have positive communication with parents from the get-go, from the beginning, the first 30 days. Every parent that they have, they'll have positive communication. I'll have positive communication with all my parents. First 60 days, we're going to have a cop doing good wall in our main office. I purposely put cop doing good. I didn't put cop being good. I put cop doing good. I want to create that community aspect of doing when it comes to helping us get up when they fall down, picking up folks if they fall, creating that kind of culture that's important to me. 90 days, I want a school-wide class dojo celebration. We work with our class dojo at Northwest Academy. That's what our teachers use. It's an effective system. It has instant communication with parents through text message, through email, through pictures, and it's immediate. Parents sign up for it. It's on cell phones. It's easy to do. Teach students see this well. So this is one thing, though, I'm going to let my teachers decide what parameters are. So if it's 85% success rate, what does that look like? Being there, having the conversations with them, but I really want them to drive on the class dojo celebration because they're the ones that are going to be driving it in the classrooms. Collaboration. After 30 days, TBT forms, meeting forms will be turned in. So our TBTs are going to be different in Northwest this year than all of the years past. We're having TBTs all in one room, having it in the cafeteria. Why is that? It's all at the same time. Every single staff member that's involved will be in those rooms. 1, everybody's held accountable. We're all in there. We're all in there together. Doing everything, all in. 2, I'm able to float between everybody else on one common schedule to get input and facilitate rather than drive a meeting. It's very easy for a principal to drive a meeting that's 30 minutes long. But if you know that you have to be in there in that for 5 minutes, 3 minutes, and then jump to another one, you're more facilitated. And lastly, it's something that I feel builds on our collaboration piece that we can have all of our support staff in at once and they can jump to other meetings as well. After 60 days, still with the 30 days, our coaching sessions will need and start on time. I'm realistic. They need to meet and start on time. That's a goal that I'm setting for myself for 30 days, and that's something that I'm challenging my staff on. That after 30 days, or within the 30-day period, we're all going to be on time for these meetings. Not 5 minutes late, not 10 minutes late, but that we're setting that precedent. Lastly, in our 30 days, our coaching schedule will be followed and coverage will be provided. Again, being realistic. That's a hurdle I know I'm going to have, is having that schedule and actually making sure that all the pieces are moving. We're all principals. We all know on Tuesday someone calls off, that can throw off everything. But we have to figure out a way to keep those schedules and keep those times going. There could be a fight breakout, or we have to figure out a way. So that's my goal for the first 30 days. 60 days, my coaching sessions are focused on one goal. They're focused on a specific goal, each teacher and staff, or staff and myself. Focus on that goal after 60 days. 90 days, my sessions are fully interactive. We're having those honest conversations when it comes to, is that too long? Sure, there's going to be some differentiation in which there's some teachers that are going faster than others when it comes to it. But by 90 days, I think that all of our staff should be having some worthwhile conversations and we're going coaching. Resilience, stealing your word. Culture of error. That's where our culture of error comes into place. We're only focusing on one thing when it deals with culture of error this year. That's where my school is at. My school isn't anywhere else. We can only handle vocabulary and how we're talking to our students in culture of error. That to me is the hardest piece of the culture of error, is changing the mindset of teachers and how they interact with the students and creating. If we master that, next year we can dive into other items. But we're not there yet as a staff. I know that. So I want to set a realistic goal for myself and for my staff. Because the thing is, if we set unrealistic goals, stuff's going to fall through. They're not going to follow through, and then my plans that I've created just aren't going to be there in the future. Respect. First 30 days, we need to learn a handshake. Not a specific handshake, it's a regular handshake and how it comes to give our students when it comes to it. That could be a culture change for teachers. Some teachers have not done that. Some teachers do tap on the head or something like, hi, how are you doing? We want handshakes. So that's going to be a culture shock for some of our when it comes to that. Class dojo setup. And then we'll also have student weeks, a student of the week and a student of the month. First 30 days, that's our goal. 60 days, we'll have a behavior chart. 90 days, our school-wide event based on respect. So aiming big when it comes to that after the 90 days of having that school-wide event when it comes to that. Mastery. Check for understanding calls perfectly. First 30 days, I'm just looking for one check of mastery, check for understanding per lesson. Just one. Now if we're doing more, that's cool. First 60 days, we have 2. 90 days, we have 3. Ideally, I'd like to have a beginning of a lesson, middle of a lesson, and end of the lesson when it comes to that for the 3 checks of understanding. And then we can build upon that once we master that. Now, will there be differentiation amongst teachers again? Absolutely, there's going to be. But that's where we're at as a school at Northwest Academy right now to master. How do we achieve our academic mission? It's very simple. You plan, you teach, you reflect, and adjust. There's so many different terms out there that people use and stuff like that. To me, it comes down to these 3 basics. You're planning effectively. How are they planning? They need to know what they're teaching. They need to set their objectives. They need to set their goals. They need to design interactive lessons when it comes to that. That's the difficult parts on it. The teaching aspect. Students need to know routines. They need to know objectives. They need to be engaged. We need to have check for understanding. We need to have feedback. We need to have strong assessments. Reflect and adjust. How many of our teachers do a lesson, then move on to the next page the next day? I don't know about you guys, but I have some at Northwest. So we need to train them. I need to coach them when it comes to reflecting on the lesson, getting data, and adjusting to it. The most powerful thing that I would see in a teacher's lesson, and a teacher thinks it's not the most powerful thing, is when they adjust mid-lesson. They think that their lesson went to crap, when in reality, they identified it, they saw it, and they changed it. Or they went back and they came up front and they spoke to it and corrected it at that point. We saw that in TLAC for some reason. So to me, that's a powerful thing, but that's also a change. So creating that culture of error aspect when it comes to that with them is going to be my mission as well. What are some other things we'll be working on? Response to intervention. Our response to intervention program, I'm very proud of. It's something that we've worked on for a couple of years, and we're very successful on it. The culture of care, it's hitting the vocabulary. It's learning myself how to talk to staff members, as well as how for them to talk to students, and how students can talk to other students. It's the domino effect for that. To check for understanding. After 90 days, if they have 3 for checks for understanding, I'm going to be an extremely happy principal on that specific topic. Teacher-based teams, that was something we were weak at last year. We weren't strong. We were not strong. This is something that I'm taking personal. This is something that I want to work on myself to get better, as well as my school. So we have to hold them to the fire, but I also have to hold myself to the fire. Improving our culture in our school. Northwest Academy will serve as a community pillar in which scholars will be able to learn in a safe, clean, and idea-rich environment. There's a couple keywords in there, but one thing that I was debating about was idea-rich. I could have put so many different words in there. I could have put anyways, but idea-rich to me covered a lot of different things. When it covers my teachers coming in with some fantastic ideas, myself coming in and trying to coach them, the coaches coming in and giving feedback, the students coming in and filling the classroom up with what they've seen and what they've gone through when it comes to that. Being a community pillar, this is one of my goals. This is something that I've struggled at in Northwest compared to my previous school. So this is something that I've set forward, and I'm challenging my staff to come with me on that, trying to help and build those relationships within the community. How do we get there? Stay positive. It's always easy to get down when the first thing that happens gets you off track. You have to stay positive. You have to have effective coaching. That means me communicating with Emily on a regular basis. That means me communicating with my staff on a regular basis, giving feedback immediately, not 2 weeks down the road, but 24 hours. Okay. Overcoming mistakes. Mistakes are going to happen. It's part of the game. It's what we're here for. We're in a school. But overcoming them is one thing that I always tell my boy, you fall down to get up. That's the kind of mentality I want at Northwest. Celebrate success. School's supposed to be fun. We've taken the fun out of school. We want to bring it back in when it comes to it. So having those celebrations, having those events when it comes to check for understanding, that covers my master's piece. That's very important to me because so many times we have kids that are falling behind. Why are they falling behind? Because the teacher keeps moving down without having them, without realizing that they don't know what's going on. And then small steps at a time. If you've seen through my presentation, I'm not sitting here trying to do 5,000 things at once. I'm trying to have a realistic approach of what I can do within a 30, 60, 90-day period when it comes to that. I don't know if you all are Friday Night Lights fans or have seen the TV show, but this means a lot to me when it comes to it. Clear eyes, full hearts can't lose. This is the mentality I want to have, as well as I want my staff and students. Having clear eyes and that you can see everything. You're open to stuff. Having a full heart that you're going to put all of your heart into it. And if you do those two things, you're not going to lose. You're going to put everything that you have into it. So it's about the effort that it's means. Thank you. I appreciate it. All right. You first? Yes.
You were talking about your RTI. I know a lot of us, in thinking about and planning for a playbook, we're trying to figure out exactly, how that works. Can you kind of share what you have, what you're proud of?
Yeah, absolutely. So our RTI process, the feedback that we got from our staff was that it was too cumbersome document. So we made it easy. We have a one-page document that we have to fill out. It was created by one of my title teachers in partnership with Martin Research Institute. We train our staff on that when they're using it. So what students did they bring forward for RTI? Well, we have a triangulation of data. When pieces. So we can use MAP scores, we can use formative assessments that teachers have given in the past, or we can use IRE scores and diagnostic and things like that. Once the student is identified, the teacher fills out the form and includes all the data pieces. They attach the data pieces to the form and they schedule a meeting. We have RTI meetings on a weekly basis. Our RTI meetings usually last 5 minutes per student, once not the initial, but afterwards. So say it's initial bring-in. We'll have our team in there. Our team is basically similar to what Jaisley was saying. So it'll be all the title staff. It'll be our school psych, speech, OT. It'll be our intervention specialist, myself, and parent. We would go over the data and we would see where the student is struggling most at. We would create a SMART goal in which if it's for just one goal, we would focus our resources on that. We would have progress monitoring on a weekly basis by whatever support staff member is doing that. And then after 4 to 6 weeks, they would come back with all of that data. That template is provided as well with the data template. From there, we would make a decision of where they're at on that specific goal. If they accomplish that goal, and we're talking tier 2 goals. If they accomplish that goal, is there another goal for them to work on if they caught up? If they have not accomplished that, or if they have accomplished that goal and there's no other goal and they're caught up, then they would be taken out of the RTI process. If they're still working on it and they still need help, then the team would decide if we're maintaining tier 2 or if we go to tier 3. Tier 3 would be special education, would be providing a lot of the interventions, while tier 2, it's mainly title staff, instructional assistants, providing that assistance. One goal that we had too last year when we were successful in it, we had every student tested for 3-minute assessments as well, and we used that a lot as part of our data piece too to help with the fluency aspect. But in reality, it was a 6 to 9 month process until we do that. So say for example, we went to tier 3, we would spend 4 to 6 weeks more focusing on a specific SMART goal, review the data, weekly progress monitoring. The teacher, if they saw an instance of that they had to adjust during that week, then they had the fidelity to do that, they were able to. They just had to mark it down and report back that that's what they did and why they did it. And then if we had to, then we had to go to testing. If not, we maintain tier 3 or move on to tier 2.
I got a question. I mean, I love your whole idea of having an idea-rich, curriculum, useful to your students, right? How do you ensure that it's rich?
I didn't hear the first part of the question. I'm sorry.
You're talking about creating a rich idea, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So my question is, how do you ensure that occurs within the class? What process and system you put out?
Well, the first thing is you have to train your staff on what that means. So that can be part of my PD plan, in which that this is what this means when it comes to that. I'm not a big proponent of putting something down and not explaining to them what the expectations are, and then sharing it also with Emily as a coach of this is what this means at Northwest, and getting her feedback as well, because I'm sure she has some advice when it comes to that. And that when we're in the classrooms, this is something that we should be looking for. And we echo that to the staff too. This is something that we're looking for. It's not a gotcha thing, it's something that we're standing by and building on. But training them first, not just because it's a very big term. I mean, it just is. And it's meant to be in some ways too, because we're able to go so many different routes with it.
I love the concept. I do.
Thank you.
So, one of our challenges, sorry,
Go ahead.
Yeah, you
No.
Was getting parents involved in RTI. We had probably a less than 50% attendance rate. Our RTI sessions per student were about 25 minutes.
Yeah.
How did you bring, what best practices did you use to bring parents in, especially when, except for initials?
How's your dismissal procedure? What do you do for dismissal?
That's how you did RTI, was during dismissal?
No, but that's how you get the parents in.
Okay.
So my dismissal procedure at Northwest Academy, you're familiar with it, probably hasn't changed.
No.
We have tons of cars in the back parking lot. My myself, a teacher goes back there, that's where we get them to say, hey, we got a meeting tomorrow, or we want you to come in tomorrow if you can, because we've been trying to contact you for a week, or when it comes to that. So that's where we use a lot of our stuff, or at the bus route, or in this adjacent parking lot. That's where we get it. Now, we have about 15% of our students that walk home that are older. It is challenging at times, definitely to fit into. So when we have a meeting that we know is going to go longer than we planned it that way too, when it comes to there. So lots of times those 2 or 3 meetings, those go longer than 5-10 minutes. The reason why we cut it down to 5 minutes, 10 minutes, is because our goal is to try to get our staff trained enough that they have the data. They have it all on the form. We can just go boom, 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 and see where they're at, and then have them talk for a short period of time, and parents talk or where they're at, and see. But yeah, I mean, ours was, if the phone calls didn't work, then we gotta get them in parking lots. Yeah.
I really like how explicit you were with your tech for understanding, and just spitting out when you're going to do it and how you're going to do it, as well as your culture aware, talking about specifically vocabulary. My question is, how are you holding them accountable for that? What processes do you have to ensure
For
the
culture aware.
because you're saying it's specific to vocabulary.
So it's specific in how they're going to be talking to their students. And when it's a completely different mindset than how some of my staff has talked to their students when dealing with mistakes and things like that, just being honest with you. So a lot of it comes down to training in the beginning and sharing with them TLAC and where we've gone videos and role playing, things like that. But also it comes down to myself being visible in the school and seeing what's going on and myself practicing. Doing cafeteria duty, it's hard to do. I mean, I'm thinking in my head when it comes to that. But seeing them in action, because a teacher can fake sometimes, a principal can fake sometimes, but not all the time when it comes to it. So one thing too, when I have my coaching schedule, I just have open blocks. I don't assign myself to a specific teacher for a specific block. I don't want them to know, put on the coaching show. I want it to be a true coaching experience. But also too, hallway interactions when it comes to culture areas is a big thing in the common areas that we all can see and we can all go with each other too. So we're trying to create that, and also too trying to create it with our police officers and support staff and how they're trying. I mean, if we're going school wide, then we have to go school wide. Food service work for everybody. So it's going to be a challenge. It just is.
So are you going to require those other people to then be in that part for your PD?
I don't think I can require them to be in my PD, but I can have separate conversations with them and stuff like that.
In your ideal world, whether it's the first 30 days, 90, or in March, what percentage of dismissal?
It's free 50.
What's happening at 4:15 on your campus?
Basketball practice, data club, student council, cheerleading, tutoring. I want our school to be a community center, to serve the community. Right now we're not.
Of those things, were any of them happening last year, or?
We had
Right,
music,
sorry.
we had music and choir. And then we had teachers doing tutoring at the school. Yep.
So you kind of building upon what Anna was saying about culture, and you obviously are very explicit in it and the focus of it. So I guess one of my questions is like, why do you think that is so important for Northwest?
I think,
This coming school year?
yeah, why I'm only focusing on vocabulary or just culture aware period?
Why is culture error such an important?
Culture aware is
element to you?
glued to everything else I do. I believe that if the students and the staff and myself are all on the same page of that, are able to openly try stuff that without the fear of getting talked down to or called out or stuff like that, that they're going to try harder. When it comes to that, it's going to improve academics. I mentioned in one of our trainings, it's the glue to everything. It holds everything together, so it's an important part for us when it comes to that, and we don't have it. And I can speak for myself too, because just being completely honest, at times when staff have come to me over stuff, I have not created that culture of error aspect, and it has has hurt relationships and it has hurt growth and development of those staff. I definitely think it's a need for it.
I was just gonna add to piggyback off of that, to be transparent about what you just said with the teacher is going to be very important. About saying you're really trying to know academics, not staff.
One of the worst feedbacks I got, because we try to get feedback from your staff at times, they knew when I was in a bad mood. They knew not to come to my office. That's like the worst thing ever as a principal is like, I don't want a teacher not to come to my office because I'm in a bad mood for whatever reason. But in reality, I mean, we're human and we did that, but me knowing that now, I can find ways and skills and strategies to overcome it. But it opened my eyes and it was devastating.
You probably never tell.
Yeah, my secretary knows it. No, my left eye twitches.
Oh, that's what you guys did.
Yeah, my secretary pointed out. All secretaries can always point out the tells. So anyway, guys.
Any other questions? All right, so real quick, back to feedback. So I think what Anna you said is really important. Like, you are very clear in your conviction, and making that connection for your teachers is going to be really important for them. For those of you that don't know, I think everyone knows that Julio's at a school where some of his teachers have been there for 10, 15 years. So any school leader is going to want to have a new area of focus or a different thing that's being prioritized. And making those connections for teachers with like the why is going to be, I think, really impactful to them. And I think related to that, so I love the one slide where it's like, you plan your teacher is done. Like, it is, like, that's it. Like, when you strip it away, that's what you want. I think what's going to be the question that's going to come up is like, all of those things can mean a lot of things to a lot of different teachers. And I think in your school, your expectation of what good teaching is, it's going to be different for a new first-year teacher that you have versus someone that's been upstairs for 15 years.
Yeah.
And I think them understanding that there is a spectrum based on their growth, and that you honor that, and that you recognize it, is going to be really impactful to them, really meaningful. And I think sometimes we get so caught up in like, this is where we've all been in the same building for the last month, thinking about like, this is my focus, I'm laser. And then, when you need to do a step back and then, how am I differentiating this for this wide spectrum of staff that I have, or am I really giving them again a incentive for why we're doing this? It's going to be really good.
I handle a lot of that during coaching as well when it comes to memory.
All right. Are you using the computer, really?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, I forgot one.
Julio, great job.
Thank you.
Not break it down.
It's ironic to want to have to go first to end up being last. I think Mark set me up.
Remember, he said the same thing to Richard a couple of weeks ago when he had to
Yeah.
go first. He was like,
It's a conspiracy. It's a conspiracy. But I'll say ditto, 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 ditto. Any questions? When I actually started this process, it was pretty daunting. Excuse me, I actually see better without my glasses. I'm getting older. I haven't got my glasses, my Bible. And I had a fixed mindset. I'd been to several schools, and it was always easier to go in and just try to pick up on the culture and climate that was already existing, and either tweak things or take away things or what have you. This process actually made me really reflect on the things that are important to me. And as I was going through this process, one of the things that you see in my letter, and I'm not going to read through this verbatim, but one of my keys was, to think about my own educational experiences and say what things really, really, really impacted me, which teachers really, really impacted me, and how did they impact me. And what I found was the teachers that really had a profound impact upon me were those teachers that really took time to get to know me, get to know my family, call my parents, although I didn't appreciate it at the time. I knew afterwards, in the long run, it was well worth their time and effort to reach out to my parents and say, hey, Willie's not maximizing his potential, Willie's goofing off, or he's laid back, or what have you. So that collaboration piece is vitally important to me. So what I did was, our mission at university is, and also we step back, it's vitally important to me because every student is not going to go to college, and that's the reality of the world. But it's important to me that academically they're competitive with their peers. They may decide to go to high school and come out of high school and be garbage men because that's what they want to do. But I want them to be able to sit in any classroom and still, from a cognitive ability, be on the same level as their peers. So our mission as a university is to close, not reduce, the achievement gap for all students by meeting their academic needs. As a result of meeting these needs, this will prepare them for high school, college, and beyond. So my core beliefs, as I stated earlier, was one of collaboration. And I'm not going to read to you the textbook version of collaboration. I'm going to tell you what collaboration means to me. First of all, partnership is invaluable. It takes a village. If everybody's not on the same page in the building about what it's going to take to be successful, everything's going to fall by the wayside. So at university, collaboration means our teachers, students, and parents work together in an organized endeavor to satisfy common goals. Collaboration will be met through teacher-based teams, student data focus groups, parent engagement committee, RTI, BLT, all the ABCs, and parent-teacher conferences. Collaboration at university means learners share and work together to achieve a common goal. It's vitally important to me as teachers are setting objectives and goals for their students that they're incorporating the parent as well as the student. There's nothing worse than having a goal set for you and you don't know what that goal is. How are you supposed to achieve that goal if you don't know what it is or how you're going to get to it? One of the worst things that I've found is that when we do things for kids and we don't communicate to the parents what we're doing, they feel devalued. We need to value our parents and make sure they're part of that process. And I think if the student and the parent are involved, then you'll have a better buy-in. Second core belief, a supportive environment fosters growth. In other words, congeniality. At university, we believe that the relationship among adults and school are the basis, the precondition that allow, energize, and sustain all other attempts at school improvement. The adults in that building must be on one accord. We expect our students' conversations to be academic. I expect the adults' conversations to be academic. When I walk out into the parking lot, I don't want to hear what Mr. McGillicuddy had on today, or did you see Johnny's mother walking him down the hallway in pajamas, or Mr. Banks is full of malarkey because he keeps asking us all these things to do. No, I expect those conversations to be academic. I expect to hear conversations such as, well, you know what, I tried to implement a strategy today, and this is what I did. You have the input in that person to be able to come back to them and say, hey, yeah, I would try this, this, and this. So those conversations have to mirror what we're expecting the students to do in the classroom. Third is learning requires effort. We expect a lot of our students, day in and day out. We expect them to stay engaged. We expect them to walk in single file lines. We expect them to be at a voice over zero in the hallway. We expect them to go to the bathroom, wash their hands, go put the towels in the garbage and come out. Well, I expect the same things from the teachers. I expect them to go above and beyond the call of duty when they're doing their lesson planning, when they're having their meetings with their students, when they're talking to their parents, and everything that goes along those things. Again, if we have high expectations for the students, we must have high expectations for our teachers as well. Do they respect and value the resources that they're given? I've gone into classrooms and kids were supposed to be on iRead and they're on YouTube. I've gone into classrooms and kids were supposed to be on iRead, and I swear there's one classroom in East, I thought killing the little marshmallow mummy was part of the curriculum. Because that's all I ever saw on the computers when I went into that particular classroom. We have to utilize our resources effectively. If we're not using our resources effectively, we're just spinning our wheels. So that's one of the things that I know that I'm specifically going to be looking for when I go into the classroom. Are the resources being used effectively? Teaching and learning. Some of the same things you guys talked about. One of the things I'm really huge on is peer tutoring. I think kids learn so much more when they have a peer that's next to them and they can help them problem solve, as opposed to an adult always stepping in and saying, no, you did this wrong, you need to do this, this, and this. When they have their buddy, their friend, sitting next to them and say, hey, why don't you try this? I think that goes a long way with that student, and then they can translate that into a better answer for the teacher. My pedagogical approaches are 5. My 5th one is learning conversation, which is something that I don't anticipate doing until November, but they are direct instruction, differentiation, e-learning and technology, and assessment. And if you flip to the page behind that, you see I have a sample of the literacy framework, and my approaches follow this literacy framework. So when the teachers turn in their lesson plans to me, this is what I'm going to expect to see. I'm going to expect to see your rotations, I'm going to expect to see what you're doing with direct instruction, and then I'm going to expect to see what you're doing with your assessments. So that one of the things that I found out about university is that there has not been a plan. There hasn't been a clear vision. So when I go in, I want to make sure that the teachers have a clear vision as to what to expect and what to expect from me. So now, I want everybody to close your eyes. And I'm just going to take you briefly through a day in the life. My name is Mary Smith, an 8th grade student at university. As I arrive on campus, I am met by a line of buses in the parking lot dropping off students. As I enter the building, I am greeted at the front door by the police officer and Mrs. Jones, who is checking for dress code violations. Good, I made it through today. Yesterday, I got a phone call home because my socks were mismatched, which I did on purpose, by the way. I can hear Ms. Jones and the officer greeting the students as they're entering into the building. I continue down the right side of the main hallway, and I'm greeted by Mr. Banks. He asks, how am I doing, and to have a good day. I travel down the hallway past the kindergarten teachers who are greeting their students and passing out their breakfast as they enter into the classroom. When I get into the gym door, Mr. Wilson and Ms. G are standing there to say good morning. They ask me how I'm doing. I proceed to walk over to the lunch counter and pick up my breakfast, where I have to select 3 of 5 items offered. While there, the cafeteria worker greets me and also tells me to have a good day. I say thank you and proceed to my assigned table, where Mr. Johnson, my homeroom teacher, is standing. I sit down and eat and talk with my friends. In the background, there are 7 other teachers talking with their students at their assigned table. I notice that the 1st grade class is starting to line up, and I know that Mr. Johnson will be letting our class know that they need to start getting ready for dismissal. My class is the last class to leave the gym after breakfast is over. I hear Mr. Johnson say 8th graders line up and throw your trash away in the garbage can. My class lines up on the far left side of the wall because we have been assigned that area since the beginning of the school year. So that, again, I'm not going to read it to you. That's the kind of imagery I want our teachers to have. I want them to know specifically what the expectations are when the kids enter the building, what they're going to do in. If you read further, it talks about how when they go into the classroom, they go into the locker, they do what they do now. But I want everyone to understand what the expectations are from the time they enter in the building at 8:45 to the time they leave out of the building at 4 o'clock. An excerpt from my letter says, my life has been impacted by great teachers who touched my life, kindled my interest, and pressed me to do my best. The teachers who touched my life the most exhibited a deep caring and love for children, As I reflect on my own educational experiences, I have realized how powerful a teacher's influence can be. This is why I'm passionate about the relationships we will forge with our students this year. I ask you to think about what type of effect, influence you will have on your students when you come in contact with them. Thank you. So I didn't go into a whole lot because a lot of this has been covered, but you know, again, it's very important to me. Collaboration, congeniality, and effectiveness are my three pillars. And I think if I concentrated on those three, because again, I didn't want to get to a position where I selected too many and it wasn't tangible, but those three are my core beliefs.
What do you see as the #1 challenge facing you as being the new principal of the university?
A clear vision. They're much like East, they've gone through 3-4 principals in a matter of a year and a half, and I think the vision's got continuity. So I think that having a clear vision, teachers understanding what the expectations are, and what the non-negotiables are what's important.
Thank you.
It's clear that you've thought through like your day-to-day and how you guys want to close our eyes and walk through that. I really like that. So we don't put too on that and we have to be precise on how they walk and whatnot, handing their lunch or getting their breakfast. So good. I like that. I am a little confused on the literacy rotation.
Okay.
Maybe you could walk me through it, or maybe you do it, or maybe explain it to me. Where the I do, the we, the do, if you are following the model, if not, then you're not. I guess I'm more confused in how writing is 30 word study within rotations. Maybe you could just explain this right.
So these are all part of the learning centers that are going to happen within the classroom. And comprehension, independent reading, writing, and word study are all part of those learning centers. So this is just, you know, again, a guide, it's not a Bible. So I just assign specific time frames to each one of those learning stations, which I didn't mention will be student-led, except for the guided centered by the teacher. But I'm not sure what you're asking, or what I'm not articulating.
Well, I guess so. Is writing 6-day writing, or is it a second? Is word study?
Those are all centers. Those are all centers. Those are all part of the rotation.
So there's not a teacher actually teaching 6-day writing.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. No, one of the centers, and I didn't put it on here. One of the centers will be teacher-led.
So the writing center will be teacher-led.
I wasn't that specific to say which. I probably it would be the comprehension, because that would be the guided reading section would be teacher-led.
So then writing would be taught something separate, or would it be a rotation?
Writing is part of the rotation. So as part of the writing rotation, the teacher would, and again, I didn't put standards, but the teacher would have a journal entry where the kids would, a prompt that the kids would have to write upon based on whatever standards they're covering for them.
I think, putting that, piggyback on that, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, so this writing could be a time when kids are practicing the writing skills they've learned through the 6 traits, either collaboratively or independently.
Correct.
But at some point, there will be direct instruction
Oh yes,
around writing.
yes, right, yeah.
And it might be different chunk of time. It could be
Right,
different
it would,
chunk of
but I'm thinking in terms of it wouldn't necessarily be within this rotation. There could be another chunk of time when they're specifically targeting writing, being teacher-led. But this is more to go along with, for example, if they're doing Read 180, whatever the topic is for Read 180 that day, there will be a writing component to go with the standard for Read 180.
What's the challenge you're realizing at university that either you didn't face at East or you weren't expecting to have to face at university that's come up over the past few weeks?
I think the biggest challenge is taking someone else's vision, Sean's vision, and reshaping it to my own. Because I think some of the teachers got really comfortable with the direction the school was going in. And not that it wasn't going in the right direction, but our visions are vastly different. So that's been a challenge. And when I've spoken to a few teachers in the building, they were like, well, we didn't do it that way. For example, the 5th and 6th graders at university ate in the classrooms. So that's a non-negotiable food. They need to eat in the cafeteria just like everyone else. So it's up, and they did eat in the classroom because their behavior, they said, wasn't up to par. Well, that's our responsibility to get them to the point where they can eat in the cafeteria like everybody else. They shouldn't be given specialized accommodations because no one could correct, redirect those behaviors. Yes, ma'am.
How are you going to monitor? I know we kind of chuckled with this, but this is just an honest question that we go through. How do you monitor like the staff communication? Let's say they're in their quote unquote breaks and their teacher lounge and stuff, and you just talk.
Well, I can't. I'm not gonna put a video camera in the staff lounge.
No, I know
Which
that.
might not be a bad idea.
But how do you?
I think immediate feedback. If you hear conversations that are not conducive to the learning environment, people who are divisive and negative are going to spew that venom, no matter where they are, no matter who they're around. They may be able to contain it for a little while, but it's going to come out. Just like when you're doing OTAN, when you're doing observations. Well, if I schedule your observation, you're going to do things differently than if I just pop up. So it's just about creating a culture where if I don't catch it, somebody else may catch it and say, you know what, this bias, that's not what Mr. Banks is talking about. We talked about in our PD, we're supposed to be having these conversations. So hopefully it'll trickle down and people will buy in once they start to hear their colleagues and their peers say, we're not going to talk about Johnny's mother coming in with pajamas. That's inappropriate for this environment. So that, obviously, again, it's not something that I can say that I'm going to catch 100% of the time, but I think if we catch enough of it, we can return people's mind.
What, I also want to ask a question here, I think it was chapter side. When you think about August 1st coming, what's keeping you up at night right now?
Everything. Again, it's just, the thing that's keeping me up is how are they going to receive it? How is the staff going to receive another message from the third principal in X amount of months and years? Is there going to be buy-in, or twisting and turning? Here we go again. Why should I listen? He only going to be here about 6 months, and then they're going to bring it. So that's the thing, and how to articulate it in a fashion that they understand that they're part of the decision-making process, and this is just not me saying this is what has to be done. This is me saying this is what I want to get done. How do we get to it together? And I think that's the thing that's most challenging. Even had a conversation with one of the aides the other day, and she didn't know what I was doing, but I was asking her, how the kids line up in the hallway, the transition. She was like, well, they line up over here and I stand here. I said, well, but the classroom's here. Why don't they line up on this wall and they can go right in? She's like, no, we want it. And so that kind of thing. I was like, no, it makes more sense for them to line up here and then go right into the classroom. So I think that's going to be some of the challenge. And that was from the, instruction way. So, teachers who are in the classroom every day who are really in the grind, you telling them that they have to do this, and this, that pushback.
So, I think the feedback I would give that is related directly to what you said. So, you're living this, the third principal and along, Mike living this, Mariah is living this, Martin sort of living this. I can only imagine if when your teachers come back, the first thing you did is have them close their eyes and you go through this. Because then it's not about you. Right? And it's not about who happens to be saying it. It's like, this is what our kids deserve. And you can, again, always honor and accept all the challenges, but you've taken what is a really big barrier, this constant turnover, and you flip it on its head to, it's not about me, my vision, my non-negotiable, you're going to get there, we all know that, but this is about what is her name was? What Mary's first 10 minutes of school is like. And I think if you have a process throughout your PD where you are collaboratively coming up with some of these shared expectations, shared norms, on the last day of PD, doing it again with everything that they brought into the expectation, whether it's a certain saying that's going to be at university or, you know, how they're lining up, a lot of infusing like their voice into a student's day in their life as like a closing activity after 10 days of PD, knowing the reality of how many years they've had. I think that'd be really, really impactful for them. Like before they leave for the weekend, before their first day with kids. So,
and they'll be able to see then how their input affects
exactly.
the school.
Exactly. All right. Anna, you're up. I'm kidding.
I can take the stage.
I'm kidding. All right. So that seems to wrap up our day. I have 2 housekeeping things, and then just want to close out with a couple of thoughts. Housekeeping. One was Learn It. So you've had some of these conversations. We are officially changing our special education provider to PSI next year. So PSI was doing something that certain campuses, they are going to do special ed, both compliance and instruction, but we're going to do ESL. So essentially transitioning away from Learn It. That transition is in process and it hasn't been the smoothest. So if anyone from Learn It contacts you, I would ask that you just forward the email to Maggie and myself, just so that we can address it in a way that aligns with all the communication we've been trying to establish between their organization and ours. We know through the sponsor review process, which is all 15, 16, we might need to ask Learn It for certain things, and we will definitely get that. But they are, it's every time they send me an email, the people that they put on it is getting longer and longer and longer, and they're just waiting for someone to like respond and engage about next year, even though they shouldn't be doing that. So again, if anyone, whether it's someone that was assigned to your school specifically or someone from the organization reaches out, please just don't respond right away, forward it to us, and then we'll figure out collaboratively what's the best way to respond.
So what levels at Learn It know about this change? Do the SPED teachers know?
So legally we cannot tell them. This is part of the challenge. So I think what they're doing or potentially going to do to those teachers and supervisors is really hard. Because right now they haven't been told they're not going to be working at these 9 schools. Those folks, the need is still there. So let's face it, PSI is probably going to hire some of them back. But there seems to be some info trickling out because PSI has told us that some of Learn It's employees have started applying to work for them and have requested Excel school. So like, this is not a big secret. This is like when Emily was leaving H&H. Like, word trickles out, but we legally cannot say it. And I've learned a lot about Ohio law. In Ohio, they legally have to notify their staff within a certain number of calendar days if one of their contracts could affect their employment. And I don't think they've done that, unfortunately. So again, if a teacher reaches out to you, just forward it. If someone from Learn It reaches out to you, just forward it. I think the reality is, though, and this is with all of our staffing conversations, the need isn't changing. So it's not like those folks aren't going to be able to find employment. They might just find employment with PSI or one of the other providers. But the number of students that need special education services is not going down next year. So,
Anything else for learning?
You have no ETA communication.
With,
Just, we're just looking at like our staff that it's gonna.
again, we can't,
When you say we can't, what do you mean we can't?
we cannot tell learned employees
Oh, because they're
that they
not
work
our-
right.
Gotcha.
And at this point, we cannot communicate directly with them because they put a restraining order. So, that's why we will all be in court on Wednesday. I will not be. Other folks, representatives that will be in court on Wednesday.
Is PSI making a commitment that will be fully staffed by this?
Yeah. So honestly, they already have us fully staffed. They have a much bigger footprint.
Yeah.
I think the challenge is we would want to retain some folks because they know our students, they know our school. So they've committed to, you'll be fully staffed here are the people, but if Learn It would release, we want to be able to swap out with folks that know your school, that have worked there. They have been very open to, they're not gonna put someone without checking with school or us about like, so this person was at Northwest last year, should they be back or not? But yeah, commitment to being fully staffed is there. They again have a much bigger footprint, so that's not a concern at all. I think the bigger concern is we could just give them actual records starting at 9 o'clock this morning. So they had our sped counts, they had the number of students per school. Today at 9 was the first day we could actually give them student names, what their disability is, and what their minutes are, so that they can like start planning out who and when are going with all the campuses.
And you really think we'll be part of that, like, process of like, yes, this person is really a strong interaction specialist, we highly recommend.
That has been a part of our, that is a part of our contract with TSI.
Okay.
That, again, we want to be able to, in your case, keep, but more importantly, not more importantly, just as important, there's some people we don't want back.
Absolutely.
That through their screening, I mean, they were hired for a reason.
Mhm.
And through their screening, they probably make it through again. But we have firsthand knowledge based on how they interacted with kids at Chapelside or at Broadway that we probably don't want them back. So yes, that's a part of the agreement.
So you said August 1st or August 15th, will they be in our PD?
So that's my next point, I'll get back to that. That's my second housekeeping.
That was part of my question too, but, or if they'll meet PSI, like the representative coming in, so we can
Yeah.
But also, too, are they familiar with the schools that need full-time nurses for medical engineers?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that goes to my next point. So this came up a lot, this whole idea, like when can IAs start working? When can contracts? So IAs should be starting August 1. So they are in your first day of PD with the same expectation that you're going to have for all your other staff. As you know, IAs are title funded. But no, I mean, so this is the thing, like, they are title funded, they cannot support, right? They support, not supplant, if they're not in your people. So the expectation is that they are there. I think you should be communicating with them in the same way that you communicate with everyone next week in prep of August 1 and what time you want everyone there and what everyone's gonna wear and all that good stuff. I do think though, and I think it was in Julio's presentation or one of the questions, the reality is you're gonna have to do some onboarding of folks. August 15th, August 29th, September 15th. So it's never the ideal, but we know that's the reality that we're all gonna face. So though people are gonna be, IA is gonna be in the room starting August 1, I think it's always good to think about how will you take what is core for your PD and be able to onboard people quickly. Or if you can't do it quickly, how are you going to devote enough time in the middle of October to be able to make that happen so their transition is really smooth. In terms of PSI, that's the same thing we're working out right now. So they know that all of our schools want the opportunity to meet on board with staff. Obviously, this other situation is making that a little more complicated, but that again is part of the contract. There's certain PD that they don't need to be a part of, some of the program specific, some of the this, some of the that, because some of them are coming with that knowledge already. That's the short answer. The longer answer is we're going to need to figure out over the next few weeks who is going to be where from PSI at each campus so that we can make sure that they are onboarded. Might be a moot point because you might have other people back anyway, so they might know you guys.
Do you know what their time of operation is?
What do you mean
Because
time of
I mean,
operation?
you said we could stagger or scaffold, or what is their time? The PSI, what time are they supposed to be in like building?
They don't have a set time yet. All that's going to depend on need and minutes and things like that. So I think that's going to be a part of as we're determining the actual school assignments. And when I say we, it's school leader, it's PSI, it's whoever. It's going to be, so you have 3 people here full time. Is it their schedule mirrors the teacher? Is it something different? And then some of that is, and again, this goes back to things that we talked about throughout the summer. When we use a third party, it takes a lot off of our shoulders, but we also lose some of the autonomy and control that we would want, right? So they might say, our employees do not work past 4:50. That is it. And so for the benefit of not having to staff special ed and worry about compliance and all that, that's one of the trade-offs. So as we get into the micro, we'll be able to figure it out. I will say this, I am excited about their commitment to where we are trying to go with our schools and understanding that. And I think we were talking before everyone came back with the difference between OCCS as a sponsor and Buckeye/OUD. Right? OCCS, they have a mindset that as a sponsor, they're a partner in our work. They hire accordingly. Conversations with sponsor reps are very different than some of the other sponsors. Buckeye and the OUD being 2 specific ones where it's all about compliance. I think the reason why we were excited about making this change is PSI wants to be a partner. They took the time to meet with a whole bunch of people around, so you guys are talking about turnaround, like what does that actually mean? Like what are you actually doing? Because we know the history of some of your schools, and we need to make sure it's the right fit for us, just like we need to make sure it's the right fit for you. And I think that speaks to what we're trying to do with them as a partner and what we need to do with all of our third partners. Anything else around those 2? No. So last thing that I have, so I think this is our last day together, just us. Obviously we're together next Friday, and that's at West Park.
Yep.
Right. But, so I'll start with a little story. You guys know I started February 10th here. A couple of months before that, I went back to Jersey. My parents they have now moved out of the home that they built, that we all grew up in. So as you can imagine, a very emotional time for my mother, who is a Catholic Italian woman. Everything is like life ending or changing. But her rule was, I will not put anything in the garbage to all of our siblings, or me and my siblings. Like, I will not put anything in the garbage. So you have to come back home and figure out what you want from your childhood, what you don't. Like, I do not want you lying on a therapist's couch 5 years from now being like, oh, she threw out that certificate or whatever it was. So me and my sisters, we spent some time going home and going through like essentially our entire lives, right? Like we grew up in that house. Everything that was ever saved was in our rooms or in this storage room we had. So I'm going through, and like I'm looking, and there's like a bunch of stuff from when I was in kindergarten, which obviously I have no recollection of. And then there's a bunch of stuff from 3rd grade, and then there's literally nothing else. And I was like, I went to my mom, I was like, so where is everything else? And she's like, I don't know, you never saved it. And I was like, right, but and she's like, you know, this stuff, when you were in 3rd grade, for some reason, like you were like, wanted me to hold on to it. And I was like, that's weird. And she's like, do you remember your 3rd grade teacher? I was like, yeah, I remember. Her name was Mrs. Goldberg. And she's like, one of my hardest days as a parent was when Mrs. Goldberg called me and said, you called her mom. And I was like, what? She's like, you do not remember, but you love this woman. And like, I don't know why, I don't know what was going on in that class, but like, you latched onto her. And she's like, for some reason, like you made us save all this stuff. And I was like, and of course then you start thinking, you start remembering like all these weird little things from like 3rd grade, which is a while ago now. And so when I was reading Willie's, his letter, one of the things I said is like, make it more personal. Like there's in here about what you think is great teachers, but like what did it mean to you? What did it mean to you? When I was going through that process and I think about my role and your role, most importantly your role, I have a level of confidence now on July 22nd that I definitely didn't have a couple of months ago. But I feel really assured that the kids that go into your building are going to have that Mrs. Goldberg next year. Like they are going to latch on to their teacher or someone in their building because of what you guys have done over the past few weeks. Like, I don't know the PD that Mrs. Goldberg had. I don't know if she was a good teacher or a bad teacher, obviously. I don't know any of this stuff. But I have this level of confidence now that your kids are going to have that person on their campus that maybe they won't call her mom or him dad, but they feel loved and safe and trust. And that is going to put them on a different trajectory, more than we can measure in MAP scores or IRE or any other data point. And in hearing everyone's presentation and questions that we've been asking, I'm really confident like all the kids are going to have that next year. And that is why this turnaround work is so important. Because a lot of those kids don't have that. And a lot of our kids don't know that they should feel that connected and feel special to some adult in their life that they see for 8 hours a day. So I commend each and every one of you for what you've done over the past few weeks. I know this was really challenging. I know this was a lot of work. I know Alyssa wants a milkshake right now. But I do want to, again, just thank you for the level of effort and engagement. I think Martin said it explicitly, like, this isn't done. We all know we're not done. But I think you guys are in such a position now that next week in August 1 is going to have such a different feel to your stakeholders, to your teachers when they come back, to all the events you have next week and on the weeks before the 15th for families. Your community is going to know your school before August 15th in such a detailed way that they're going to get excited and they're going to do things you never thought they would do for you, and they're going to meet expectations and exceed them just because of your leadership. So thank you again for all the hard work. I'm excited to dive in with your teachers soon. But most importantly, have a good weekend. Hopefully unplug for an hour or two. You don't need more than that. And we'll continue the conversations next week, and we'll see everyone together next Friday. So thank you again.
Oh, that's Alyssa's, yeah.